So to mount my watercolour paper, I'm using just a foam board. So I just picked this up on Amazon. I think I got loads of sheets for quite cheap. It is good to have a few because then you can prepare your sheets and then move on to the next one. And so you've always got one handy to go. Now I'm using watercolour paper. So this one's only 200 GSM. You can go all the way up to 300-400 GSM. I do recommend no lower than 200 GSM. So the GSM is just the thickness of the paper. So the thicker the paper, the less it's likely to wobble. The size that I've got here is an A2. So I usually only work on an A3 size. You can even do A4 or whichever size you like. But I've just purchased an A2 folio of watercolour paper because this allows me to choose whichever size I'd like to use, and if I'm cutting it up as well, I think it works out better value for the amount of sheets that I'll actually have available to me. Okay, so I've got my foam board here. You can also use the back of a picture frame, a piece of wood, anything that's quite sturdy. You can also use a tile sample if you're going to your local hardware store. So just be creative on what you can use for your hard surface behind. It doesn't have to be anything too precious or anything specific that's been used for artist materials. So I'm going to place my watercolour paper on here, make sure that it fits on my foam board, that's fine, and I've got a nice border around the outside. Now there is a way to ensure that when you are using quite a lot of water on there, that it doesn't wobble, because even if you use loads of water on thicker paper, it can buckle a little bit. So to avoid that, what you can do is called stretching of the paper, which I can use a spray bottle, or you can have a tray of water, which you would place your watercolour paper on and then place it on here first. So now I'm just going to spray my sheets on one side. I'm going to place this down. And then I'm just going to use a bit of paper towel or a cloth just to smooth that all out from the centre. I'm just going to add some more water on top and smooth that out again. So this is going to stretch your watercolour paper, and then once we put that tape on there, it will ensure that that stays nice and flat when you're adding paint on top. See how that's nice and flat now, and then I can add my tape along. Now to add my tape, so I'm just using plain masking tape if that's what you've got handy. You can also get tape that's specifically for this online. I'll leave a link for that below. But if you've only got masking tape, that's fine too. We can use this one. So I'll just measure out the base, that's roughly that size. And I'm going to rip that off. And before I stick it on there, there's a little trick you can do to ensure that that doesn't stick too much to your paper, because this isn't specifically designed for this purpose. So I'm going to stick it to my clothes first. So you can't see this, but I'm just applying it to my clothes, ripping it back off, and there might be just a little bit of lint in there. It just takes away a little bit of the stickiness, which will allow me to stick it on, and then the likelihood of that pulling up my paper as well as just disconnecting from that surface is not as likely. So I'm going to continue to do that for the entire outside. Alright, now that that's on, give that a little bit of a chance to dry, and then that's ready to go.